What's going on, everyone? So there's a discussion here by MBG saying that he thinks that the PS6 handheld or the next PlayStation handheld is going to be able to compete with Nintendo. Here's my thing: Sony has a sub-market they can get in. They're the closest, I could say, brand that will be able to sell more than 10 million on the market. But as far as competing with Nintendo, that's not possible. So we're going to dive into things, and I'm going to explain why this is not going to happen. But I understand people think what they want to think, but there's like nobody can compete with Nintendo and handheld. They got drove out and lost, just like Microsoft got drove out by Sony and lost. It's the same thing. You're coming back because Nintendo did that. I don't get the idea of thinking that you can copy somebody and somehow be better than them. That's impossible. You're always going to be a shadow behind them. No PlayStation handhelds are not going to sell 40 million. You know what I mean? Not even 30. If you get 20 million, that would be nice. 25 million, that would be cool. But to think that they're going to have some dedicated handheld with its own first party games and its own market, that's not going to happen. You're going to be the official PlayStation handheld. They're going to be able to play some of those games, yeah. But you're not going to be on your own with your own games. Not happening. So no matter what people think, and there's nothing against MBG or anything. I'm not coming to like slam or anything. This is just a open debate discussion, not anything, you know what I mean, crazy or anything. But let's get into this and let's keep going.
I was iffy about it at first because I figured the PS6 games, most PS6 games, will be coming to PS5, but handheld changes everything for me, and I'm sure a lot of people think that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we're seeing a resurgence for handheld.
Because of Nintendo. That's it.
The most important thing.
And why did Sony come and make their handheld? Why did Sega try it? Because of Nintendo. So you're doing it because they made it successful. You failed. And you went out the industry. Vita sold Wii U numbers, 14 million. You got destroyed. And if you would have tried the Switch, they would look at 150 something. You would have got destroyed again. You can't compete with Nintendo and handheld. What you can do is live off the limelight and trail that they left and try to put your wannabe device there. That's the best thing I could say. But there's nothing wrong with Sony doing that. I'm just saying that don't get in no fantasy to think that there's going to be some competition, because that's like saying that the Series X and S would have been competition by selling 30 million and PlayStation is going to be at over 100 million. Switch 2 is going to sell 100 something million, right? Switch 1 sold 100 something million. Is that really competing, or are you getting your ass whooped still? You're not competing with Nintendo. It's a fantasy. What you can do is give yourself a market and eat into a little bit of their share, a little bit. Have some establishment in Japan. You get what I mean? But everything else is a fantasy to me. And I'm not talking about, I'm just saying in general, this needs to be stated.
I think we have to try to keep in mind with the PlayStation 6 handheld is this. Sony is looking for mass market success, and the price will reflect that. You know,
100%.
Sony is not looking to put out $1,000 handheld that sells like 1 million units or 2
No.
million. Sony is looking to put out a genuine Switch 2 competitor.
MBG, man. Brother, no. They can't compete with them. You're saying that that handheld is going to sell like 80 million, 90, 100 million. Dude, do you really believe that? If they get 20 million, 30 million, that would be incredible. Right now, because the handheld market is more tougher than it's ever. There's more all around, more than ever. PlayStation is kind of struggling to get to 100 million now in a certain way. They need GTA and all that. There's no way this handheld moves with the Sony consoles. Dude, Sony is strong in the hardware console market. They had that one time when they hit that 80 million. You want to know why? Because they locked all those Monster Hunter games there and other people's games, but they don't have their in-house to do that. They're not going to have that dedicated world like that now. It's just going to be within their ecosystem as it's timed. And it's an extension device of the PlayStation ecosystem, but it's a dedicated handheld that can do what the PS5 can do, not fully PS6. So I welcome it. I think it's going to be a cool device, but you can't compete with Nintendo. Not going to happen, man.
And let me ask you, are there any Switch 2 competitors on the market right now?
No, never will be.
There's a lot of different handhelds on the market. Is there anything that says we're trying to go after the Switch 2?
Suicide.
As far as I'm aware, the answer to that is no. I don't think there is. I think, again, you have more options than ever before for handheld. But Sony, if you think about it, Sony is the only one in position to try to actually take the Switch 2 on.
They can try. I get what you're saying, but they're the closest that could ever get out of that. Oh, this handheld can sell 20 million. You know what I mean? You don't see that anywhere. It doesn't exist. Only Nintendo's left. Everything else is just some extension of the PC. moving like 2 million units or something at most in a couple years. You know what I mean? It's just sitting there because Sony has such a loyal base, and they do move hardware. That handheld can make some waves for a PlayStation, but to look for it to go to Nintendo, no, man, you're going to get destroyed. It's not going to happen, and they're only going to sell more and more as all their games come out. The Pokemon games come out. Sony don't have no games like that first party, man. Like they don't have that exclusive identity in the handheld world to be able to go head to head. You said head to head, man. Like get in their face. That's not going to happen. They're going to get absolutely demolished. I'm just saying. Just watch. The better thing is that Sony will be able to probably eat into their market share a little bit. Sony will be able to establish themselves more sales and more hardware devices outside of the hardware system. And they will be able to do that, and I think it could work for them, and they can get a little bit of a boost in Japan and in other regions. There's nothing wrong with that, you know what I mean? My only gripe here is thinking that you're going to take on Nintendo. Like, that's not possible. And it never will be. That stuff's over with. They had their chance back then. The Vita was the last thing. And now it's just, oh, Nintendo did such a good job again and sold 150 something million, maybe be the highest selling console of all time. You know, they made up those 5 million sales. And because of that, we're coming in and we're going to imitate them. You're just being the wannabe imitators. But you're not the pioneers and the creators who made that way in that golden trail. They have done that time and time again. And they're the ones that are the leaders and are in that high position, having 90-some% of the handheld market to themselves. You're not going to really change much of that. But like I said, what you could do is improve PlayStation's internal growth in-house with your devices. That's it. No Nintendo competitor, though.
They have the infrastructure, they have the storefront, they have the games, they have everything that they would need to try to get a piece of that switch to pie.
Okay, a little, maybe a little small, little aspect could cut into it like 5%. Okay, that is more reasonable. Like I said, nothing against what MBG is saying here, but it's more like we should just be straight up raw about this. You know what I mean? And just be like, no, it's not. It's not going to happen. We would just be better off trying to, like I said, get our own piece of some of that they did. Draw is going to be far behind.
I don't know how effective they'll be, but I'll put it to you this way. I think it's like
that's a good statement.
You go, yeah, that's true too, Titus. Like Steam Deck has gained a lot of traction, but in the bigger picture, though, like that's what's crazy is like the way people talk about Steam Deck. I would have thought it sold tens of millions of units. It's only sold like 5 million. Now they are going to have the Steam Deck 2, and maybe that'll be a game changer. You know, you never know what's going to come out and just suddenly shock the market.
It may hit 10 million. If it did that, that would be amazing. But once again, for them, that's going to be cool. You don't have a dedicated market. You don't have a dedicated games. You're just an extension of what people mainly are going to play in the PC world, laptops and desktops. Those are extension devices. They don't have their dedicated world. PlayStation is the closest outside of Nintendo to that. But it's still not a dedicated only. That's the problem. As I said, there's no identity there. There's just an extension of an identity that is taken up by 90+% of laptops and PCs. This is where I think that people are just not getting that idea in their head. Nintendo's identity and domination is so strong, it's way tougher in the handheld market because they don't have 90% of the console market to themselves. You see what I mean? You're trying to go into a market where they're like, no, man. The only thing you're going to be able to do is try to benefit yourself, but don't look to compete with me because it ain't going to happen. And they're going to be sitting there showing up with their first party games selling 25, 30 million, 30 million, 24 million, selling 100 million, and you're just going to get embarrassed, man. So it's not good to try to compare them because they're going to get dominated. Like Sony dominated PlayStation, Nintendo will dominate Sony worse in that field because you just don't have any power there and that exclusive identity power. And just they've been doing it their whole lives. It's too late. Literally.
But the thing about Sony is they've had that success before, as Alma points out. They've succeeded. They had 80 million PSP sales. I don't know how they achieved that, truthfully. Like, I don't know.
MBG, it was the Monster Hunter games, an exclusive Monster Hunter lineup up in Japan. You know how big that was in Japan, so they supported that a lot too. They had that, but then what Sony didn't realize is when Nintendo made the DS or 3DS, they money had it Monster Hunter 4 and took that from them. And said, what happened? You know what I mean? Because you just try to money hat stuff, and we put our first party games there. Boy, it sold 150 something million. You see what I mean? And Sony was sitting; they still doubled their sales damn near. Um, and they caught them off guard. They did. And 80 million was from multiple consoles. You had the PSP, the PSP Go. They were combining that individually, but it's still, you got to combine it together. But that's how they did that, bro. It was because of third-party money hatting. And in Japan, you know how big Monster Hunter is over there, so they had those little exclusive games that were money hatted, and the hardware was still cool too. It wasn't like it was a bad handheld outside of Monster Hunter. No, it was good at that time. But they still got destroyed. And you would say, man, but 80 million is still good. It is amazing, and that's very successful. But if you're talking about competing with Nintendo, uh-uh. It's just hard to do that. And everybody knows that they were way more stronger in the handheld than consoles over time. So the Wii hit, then you got the Switch selling 150 something million, Switch 2 is going to sell 100 million. They start balancing things out again. Now they got the dominant handheld and console combination going together. Obviously, the handheld percentage may be bigger, but we get that idea here. And this is just to show how things really work and to have our expectations leveled for next gen, to realize what this handheld is going to be and what's the reason of being able to get it. You know what I mean? Not to compete with Switch 2, but to have that PlayStation identity and official handheld. And I think it would be cool. Sony should give it a try because of Nintendo.
How they did that, if I don't like, that's so crazy to me. That just sits there. What's crazy to me is that Sony
Hmm.
gave up so soon after the Vita. I know the Vita only sold. I think the Vita sold what, like 16 million or something.
Yeah, like 14 or 15. Because, dude, it's a hard gamble. They saw that. Everybody kind of saw that. Nintendo was the only one that can keep doing this. That's why I said they weren't confident. Just like Microsoft wasn't confident of even selling 10 million for their handheld, but we know that's not going to happen. So Sony was like, no, let's focus on what makes us strong. When you have that type of failure, it's kind of hard to take that step again. They didn't want to take that risk. It takes courage to do that again because you don't know how much they would have priced them out and dominated again. And Sony would have lost a lot of money. They weren't going to take that opportunity. And I think they were smart because they got to the better path over time. And then now Nintendo opened up a door again and they can come in through their door like everybody has always done. It's just wise to sit back and wait and not be foolish. Wise thing to do because the Switch would have embarrassed them. Everybody knows that.
So it was a huge difference. But
Hmm.
I really think, look, I know this sounds kind of shitty to say because I know it's not necessarily that exciting for some people, but I think Sony's gonna copy Nintendo, dude,
Yes,
but
they
try to
will.
do it better.
Dude, how could they do it better, MBJ? You're not making any sense, man. In order to say they're going to do it better, is to say that they're going to beat that the greatest console design of all time. How, dude? Better? What do you mean? It's not going to even sell 30 million, and if it does, that would be a miracle. You would have to out develop them first party, outshine them, outsell them. What do you mean do better? You are a shadow of somebody's gold. You're coming in to try to copy everything they did. How is that better? Better means I'm doing better than what you did. That's impossible when you're a clone. And a far, far, far back clone, way in the back. You see what I mean? Because you're not going to get that 100 something million. That's a pipe dream. So that's impossible. No way. No, man.
I'm telling you, I really think that's what they're gonna do. Now, to be clear, I don't mean copy them like Sony's gonna have their own Joy Cons. I mean, Jesus, don't do that. Like,
Don't be surprised.
don't copy that. Don't pull a Wii situation. I just mean that if you're like,
See what you just said though, MBG? When you try to copy something, that it all fails. The Wii Move failed. The Connect failed. The PlayStation Kart Racers failed. PlayStation All Stars failed. They're losing themselves. Sony should stick to what they're good at. If you're going to do a handheld, do it, but remember, you're not Nintendo. And you shouldn't try to be something that you're not. Stick to your identity, strengthen that. Of course, they're going to copy them because they don't have any choice because they're the best. But remember that it is not going to do what you think it's going to do. You have to wait and see how this thing pans out. We have to see the price. We have to see the market conditions. We have to see how things are going to play out. I'm not against another handheld coming into the industry from PlayStation. Hey, what's wrong with that? I have no problem with that. But saying to do it better, how? That doesn't make any sense, man. I don't get that statement.
think of it like this: if you're Sony and you need to try every thought you have about preparing for next gen, it all comes down to one focal point. And that focal point is the market is beginning to stagnate, the console market.
Hmm.
We've hit a little bit of a wall. GTA 6 is going to be there.
Hmm.
It's still going to go, it's going to still be sustainable, but we need growth. We need to show a spark, right? We need to show that going into the PlayStation 6 generation, we can grow this beyond what we achieved with the PS5. I think when you whittle it all down, if you're Sony, you have no choice but to look at Nintendo.
Yeah, everybody
Because
does.
think about it. It's
Microsoft has to do the same thing. In order for them to continue growing, they have to put everything over there. They have to say, oh, these are the people who can beat Sony. They've done it plenty of times. They've never lost to Sony in the handheld war, and they never will. And now it's going to be harder than ever. Sony won with the PS2 hardware sales and the PS1. That's it. PS3, we sold 100 and something million. PlayStation 4, Switch sold 100 and something million. 150 something million. Switch 2 is going to outsell PS5. Nintendo's beat Sony more times. And they have the SNES era that they won against Sega. If you talk about who has the most victories in the gaming industry, Nintendo does by a mile. Game Boy, 100 some million. Sony wasn't around for that. Ain't nobody beating that. You see what I mean? They won, like big time. Now we want to go to the software sales. I already showed you guys that. 50 million, 70 million, 80 million. So, you know what I mean? 40 million, 30 million in totality from beginning to end. Hardware and software, they won. They put no games nowhere. They won. They outsell everybody to put multiple games on multiple consoles, times 3, times 4. They won. The only victory Sony has is PS1 and PS2 to an extent. But in totality, they still have the Game Boy plus the console sales combined. You see what I'm talking about? Totality, because you can look at the whole picture. So PlayStation was winning in its own lane. Nintendo was winning the whole thing, and everybody needed them. Everybody copied them. Everybody followed them. They opened up the door. They saved the gaming industry. This is just facts I'm speaking here. And when Sony came into the handheld industry, they lost every single time. They lost during the Wii era. They lost in the Switch era. They're going to lose in the Switch 2 era. Who has the most victories? I've seen some dumbass stuff on Twitter. People say, so what are you talking about? Nintendo won. You want to go to first-party software comparison of every console? You're getting destroyed first-party. It's mostly third-party. Let's be real here. And I love PlayStation, you know what I mean? I love Nintendo, and then I loved Xbox when it was great. I loved Sega, you know what I mean? I love PC gaming. But Nintendo is king because they've gave way more than every other platform. All these other platforms, you take a bunch of people's games. You don't give what they give. You don't. Steam gives nothing. Where are your games at? Past 20 years, nothing. Same old games sitting there. Nintendo's consistently dropping 6, 7, 8 games per year. They're talking about what Microsoft did. Man, Nintendo's been doing it for 40 straight years, 35 straight years, as a matter of fact, selling consistently from their own insides. They didn't grab and monopolize anything. And they're running multiple hardwares, handheld and consoles, consistently 24/7 for years and never falling apart, never laying off and dumping off their people. That bond is not going to be beaten. It's too strong now. You don't stand a chance. The only thing you can do is learn from it, and that means strengthen my insides and my identity. And don't cuck out. But if you have to, hey, man, that's where this industry is heading. People need more money and they want more profit, so they're expanding out. Sony doesn't necessarily have to do it to that degree, but they want that extra money. They made more money than they ever had in any generation. They ain't even over with. Still got years to go. See what I mean? Switch 1 tripled the PlayStation's profit. You know what I mean? They did. Go look at it. And the highest sales they have on there was some GTA game, Vice City or San Andreas, like 17, 18 million. Nintendo's over there, 50 million, 60, 70 something million Mario Kart, 50 million Animal Crossing, 30 millions all over, 20 millions all over. Sony ain't never in their life did nothing like that. The closest they ever could have gotten was with PS4. So when you understand this totality power that they have, like Gabe Newell said, their ways of making hardware and software harmoniously together, nobody's like Nintendo. He was looking at them to make the Steam Deck. Everybody is going to them to make their own device like theirs. That's when you realize that's the winner and the creator and the leader. It's not about being a fanboy. This is a fact. Nobody's making up anything over here. This is exactly what's happening. Not to have on a Nintendo hat, have on a Nintendo background, have Nintendo all on my page, and I have on a Nintendo t-shirt every single day, and it's only that. Yeah, that would be a fanboy, but there's nothing wrong with being a fanboy. But I'm just saying, we need to get our facts straight here because AGN is spitting facts here. There is no competing with them. There is, man, can I get some of that magic? I want that now because you made it that way. I couldn't have done that. I quit. You quit. You left out. It's like Microsoft is quitting and leaving out. Same thing. You can't compete with them. Now, hardware, console sales, yes, but outside of that, I'm like, okay, let's go to first party. You're not ready. Because those sales and that profit margin and that lower budget cost and beating you on cheaper specs, it means I'm better than you. It's like me going on a fighting game. Oh, I'm going to choose these weak handicap settings. You get that, and I'm still whooping your ass. I'm better than you. Oh, yeah. You had all those specs and all that, and nah. You see what I'm saying? That's not an argument. It's just realizing, yeah, man, you're right. If he's beating you on handicap specs, I don't know what else to say.
It's like, okay, well, we won the home console space. Microsoft is out.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one else is taking Microsoft's place. So, is there any other area around us that we can take a close look at that seems to be doing particularly well that we're not involved in? Nintendo is literally like a giant, blinking sign. It's like, bro, the Switch and the Switch 2. Sony, get on it,
You're right. Yeah.
Damn, Tin Blood, that sucks. And I think that Sony's view of
MBG has some good points. I'm not disagreeing with his methods. The only thing I'm disagreeing with is him thinking they can take them on head to head and say, do better. Like, what do you mean do better? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But maybe he may reply and say something, or somebody may come into my comment and say, well, what do you mean by do better? Because the ROG Ally made a handheld, but they made it more powerful. You know what I mean? But that's not better. That's like saying the Series X is better because it had more specs. No, dude, that power never won. Every PlayStation handheld was more powerful than a Nintendo handheld. Don't mean nothing if you ain't got the games and the identity. That's what I'm saying. What's the point then?
This is like, okay, well, here's how I'll paint this picture, right? I think what Sony wants to do is let's go to it's holiday 2027. People are Christmas shopping for, they're preparing for Christmas 2027. They're Christmas shopping. They're browsing online. They go on Amazon and they click gaming. And I think you're going to see PlayStation there. You're going to see Nintendo. You'll see Xbox as well. But I think when you click, let's just say somebody's looking at handhelds. Oh, there's a Switch too. Maybe somebody just types in gaming handheld on Amazon. I think what Sony is hoping to achieve is that the first thing they'll see is the Switch 2. Right under that, you'll see the PlayStation 6 portable.
Yeah.
Or the PlayStation. I'm sure they'll give it a different name.
Something, yeah.
I think the idea is like the Switch 2 will be $400, $450. And this PlayStation 6 handheld will be like $500, maybe $550.
I'd say $550 or $600, yeah.
50. And people are gonna at that point, like I think people will look at those two things and they'll compare and they'll contrast, right? And they'll say, well, like the prices are pretty close. I've heard of PlayStation. I know what PlayStation is. Obviously, we know what Nintendo is. Who am I buying this for? Who should I buy this for? Like, do you think Sony's not going to market the absolute shit? Like, do you think... I shouldn't speak so matter-of-factly. What do you think the chances are Sony is going to have Astro Bot 2 ready to ship alongside the PlayStation 6 handheld?
The problem with that, MBG, is nobody bought that game. That's what I'm saying. They don't have anything to move things like that. It doesn't have power like that. Mario will come in and sell 20 million in a year, and Astro Bot will sit there at 2 million. And nobody's going to buy the PlayStation thing because they're going to play Astro Bot on their main console. And the thing with the Switch is that's part of the console. That's what you're not getting, bro. Like it's going to be optional. It's not going to be mandatory. So I get your idea of trying to put that identity there like a Mario game, but Astro Bot doesn't have Mario's power. Not even close. It didn't even sell 1.5 million being game of the year, and the whole world saw it, and it's still sitting there. They had to force bundle that in. Watch Donkey Kong Bonanza sales when Nintendo reports it soon. That's going to already... And that's under 10 million install base. Just watch. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Like, there's nothing Sony can do about that. If people are going to want to get that handheld, it's going to be getting that for the same thing they do specifically for PlayStation. That's most of those third-party games. And of course the exclusives too. But why would somebody want to not say, "No, man, I don't want to play it on my TV"? Because most PlayStation gamers are like that. I'm not saying that handheld is not going to be awesome. I think it will be, but they're just not going to have anything to be able to compete against Nintendo in that field. It's going to be hard, man. That's the difference. So MBG has some points here, and I get what he's trying to say. I'm not necessarily coming to beat him down. I didn't call him any names or any of that, but I'm basically challenging some of his thought processes that I think are not going to work to believe that they're going to be a competitor for Nintendo. Could it be some little mini side competitor annoying them? Yes. But could they do head to head? No way, not possible. Because by the time they come out, you know how much sales they're already going to have? Way too many. And they'll be in their prime, dropping so many games. Like you're just not going to be able to do anything about that. And they may even have bundles and deals and drop stuff down. You never know. But the way this market's going, good lord, who knows? So let me know what you guys think about this. This is a good topic. Still like MBG, he's a cool guy. I just don't agree with them that better statement and them competing with Nintendo, and I had to explain why because I understand this very well. So this is more about an open debate so that we can reach a better understanding of how things work and why I don't think there's no competition for Nintendo and there never will be in that field. Later, y'all. Peace out. Have a great day.